Hey, I'm C. Ray, the Director of Product and Customer Experience at Factor. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about onboarding and more specifically the difference between onboarding versus just implementation of software. Factor is a software company and we implement and onboard architects and engineers to that software. And we've learned a lot about how businesses work when they're bringing on new software, both the things they like and the things they don't like, and the things that make them successful and the things that make them not so successful. And one thing that we find when we're onboarding new companies often is they have horror stories from the last time they went through onboarding to new software or adding a new tool to their toolkit and how they serve their clients or manage their projects. And we also get very high marks. I'm not shy about saying it, high marks on how we onboard companies and why that's a little bit different. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it today, not even just specifically how Factor does onboarding, but why we take a different approach. The usual deal and what you see a lot of times when you get new tools is you're handed those tools, you're maybe handed an instruction manual and you're told sort of like, good luck. And that's where the relationship side of you and your onboarding specialist tends to end. And if you think about other things that you try to implement, think about like new furniture you try to implement. How many of us have had a frustrating experience when we're given all the parts and, maybe the tools that come in a little baggie and instructions that are significantly more complicated than the Legos we built growing up and told like, good luck. Hopefully you can work this into your home. And when it comes to software that you're planning to run your business, if I can really stretch this metaphor, it's like being told, here are the parts, here's the tools, here's the instructions, hoping you can figure out how to build it. But at least with furniture, you're still able to figure out like where that fits in your home. You already did sort of like the business analysis, if it were, as to like where I want to put this furniture, how I'm going to use it. You've already envisioned the parties that you're going to have around that table or the quiet nights at home you're going to have on that couch. With business software, there's an added complexity because you don't always know all those things. You're maybe promised early on in the sales process some great outcomes and big results, but if there's not somebody who can then take a look at the way the rest of your home or your business is set up and the other tools that you have there and how you're using those, then not only is it going to be difficult to get this software working in your business, but to get it working for your business in a way that's going to actually bring you value. And that's part of why we're a little bit different. Instead of just handing you the hardest part, which is figuring out why you got the software, we go much further than just saying, here's what you should implement about our software. And even here's how you do the things in our software. We're going to sit down and consult with you and talk a little bit more about who's going to do those things and when and where, because we also care about why. Why is super important. Not again, just because you were promised a big result that you were going to get invoicing done this much faster or that your projects were going to be this much more profitable or things like that. But why each part of the engine runs the way that it does. Not just what it does and how it works, but why it works and how the different pieces work together. And to really understand that, you have to have a consulting mindset involved in the process. Otherwise, you're going to have to fill that part in. Quite frankly, if you just signed up for new software, you probably didn't realize you were also signing up to figure out from a business analysis standpoint, like where that software fits in your business. It gets very complicated if you don't have somebody to kind of hold your hand through it, ask the right questions, understand what you're currently doing, and understand where this is going to fit in. To go back to my silly furniture metaphor, we're not just going to sit down with you on the floor with all these pieces and parts around and help you put it together. We're also going to walk through your home, talk about the kind of parties you throw, talk about the kind of quiet nights at home that you like to have, and help you find the best place to put that furniture in, and maybe even how it best works with the other furniture there. I've definitely taken that metaphor way too far now, so I'm going to quickly dash away from it, but I think you get the idea. This is way more than a hand you the tool, hand you the guide sort of approach to onboarding. It's way more of a understand what you're trying to achieve with your business, not just with the software you're onboarding, and really understand where it fits and how it's going to help you achieve your business goals, not just the promised results of the software. What it looks like for us is a very guided setup. It's very hands-on, it's very personalized, and a big part of the first conversation you have with somebody in onboarding is them asking you questions, because any good consultant knows they need a really, really good profile of you and how you currently manage sub-consultants, what your pre-billing and post-billing activities look like. How good is your team at getting time entry in? At what level of detail do you track time? What do your clients expect to see with their invoice? How much hourly detail, or how much are they okay with just getting billed by the milestone and they don't need to know anything about sub-consultants? Those are all really important things as to how Factor can work for you, because Factor is very flexible. And yeah, we could hand you Factor and a guide and, a bulleted list in our knowledge base that explains all the different ways you can configure it. But it's a whole lot easier, again, if somebody gets in there with you, understands those typical processes that you go through, who runs them, how often you do them, and how they all work together so that you can implement it the right way. And of course, there's a data import component to this where we bring in the amount of legacy data that makes sense. When I say the amount that makes sense, it could be that you have a lot of legacy data in fractured spreadsheets and old PDFs and, data from another system that's not going to match up to Factor. That's okay. A lot of times we can clean that stuff up. A lot of times we might also look at it with you and consult with you to understand whether it's better to just leave it where it's at. So if you had to, you could go back and reference it. But for the most part, a lot of that fractured data is going to do more harm than good if we try to bring it into a system where the accuracy is poor. And what you're really using it for is things like comps when you're pricing out new projects, or trying to look back and understand the last time you did work for that client, what were the phases that you went over on and things like that. If the data is not in a state that helps you answer those questions, we're not going to put any extra work on you to bring that data in. And then finally, we're going to talk to you, like I mentioned earlier, about the ways that you specifically work. And the person having that conversation with you is going to be AE minded. It's not just that our system is built to help architecture and engineering firms run. It's that the people talking you through how to configure it understand how architecture and engineering firms run. They've worked with hundreds of firms, and trust me, they've seen all the weird ways that your clients have requested invoices be sent. They've thought of all the weird ways that you might need to break down a fee, whether that includes or doesn't include the sub-consultants, and whether you've got to report on this or that expense, or whether you've got to report on individual hours and report cost and profit multipliers. Like, we've seen all of it. So when you're explaining these things, you don't have to educate them on how your business works and sort of reverse engineer how you do things. Instead, you have somebody there. You don't need to prepare. They can just ask you the questions and derive what they need to know to make you as effective as possible. And it might seem like that's a lot and it takes a long time. The other thing that we really believe in is getting you time to value. So because Factor is a system that can scale with you, you don't have to use every component of it. I will plug, because I'm the product guy, I hope you use as much of it as possible. And the more of it that you use, the more value you'll get out of it. But we can get companies up and going in as little as 2 billing cycles. And part of it is the depth that we go into and the consultative approach that we take to how your business actually runs, that it ends up making us run faster through the actual implementation side of the software. So in a single billing cycle, we will help you get all of your projects imported, the ones that you're still working and need to track time and invoicing to, and balances maybe for the legacy projects that you want for comparisons. And the whole goal there is, in that one billing cycle, get everything that you need to start tracking your billables, your time entries and your expenses in Factor. And at that point, it also means that your team is now, even before you've adopted the whole system, getting value out of the system. So you're not paying for a license for 6 months, waiting to get some value, or trying to run in parallel with another system. We'll be very, very clear. Our recommendation is always a clean cutoff. We're going to help you do all the prep work so that you have a nice and easy pivot point at the end of a billing cycle to say, we know all the billables before that are tracked in system X, and then everything going forward is in Factor. So easy peace of mind. And then the clock starts, because then we have one more billing cycle to get you ready to send invoices to clients. And we will work with you to customize your invoice templates. So even if you need 3 or 4 different templates for different types of clients or different types of contracts you write, or, the highly regulated government clients you work with versus the, simpler commercial or residential clients that you work with, we will take care of it. And since your team is already tracking all of their time to nice, clean, new budget structure that makes sense, then generating those invoices at the end of that second billing period is going to be easy. but we'll be there to hold your hand through it and make sure all the parts you're unclear about are clear. You will see continuity from the people that are working with you through the process. And again, all of it goes back to us understanding not just what you need the software to do or how you might like to do it, but truly understanding why you're doing it that way. We understand that from our experience, but we also understand how much variation there can be throughout this industry. And that's why we take a consultative approach that digs in, understands how you're going to use the software and helps you configure it that way. That is the differentiation between us and not just other people in this space, but just a lot of software companies in general. This isn't something that you go to and sign up through a website and then suddenly a month later, you're subscribed and running your business in a totally different way. Like, it's a pretty big jump that you're taking, and we're going to be there to guide you through it. So thank you for hanging out and listening a bit to how we do onboarding and why it's a little bit different. If you want to know more, check out factorapp.com, and you can learn a little bit more in detail about the different stages of our onboarding. Reach out for a demo. And somebody from our team would be happy to talk you through that process and even start that consultative process of understanding what your business is looking to achieve, not just with our software, but overall and where we might fit in.